Attraction rarely announces itself with clear statements. Most people do not walk into a conversation and openly declare desire. Instead, attraction reveals itself quietly through patterns of behavior that repeat over time. Words can be polite, socially expected, or even confusing, but behavior is much harder to fake consistently. This is why paying attention to actions tells you far more than listening only to what someone says. When a woman feels drawn to you, the shift often begins with attention. Attention is a form of emotional investment. She listens more closely, remembers small details, and responds in ways that show you are truly heard. This is not accidental. People naturally focus on what interests them. When attraction exists, presence increases, conversations feel less distracted. Eye contact lasts longer. There is a sense that she is mentally there with you, not just passing time. Behavior also shows intention. Someone who is interested tends to create continuity. Interactions do not feel random or one-sided. There is follow-up. There is engagement. She might reference something you said earlier, bring up an inside joke, or continue a topic days later. This continuity reflects that the connection stayed in her mind after the interaction ended. Attraction often lives in that mental return. When someone thinks about you even when you are not around, another behavioral signal is comfort. Attraction is closely tied to emotional safety. When a woman feels comfortable, her body language becomes more relaxed. The conversation flows without forced pauses. Silence does not feel awkward. She may linger instead of rushing away. These moments matter because people naturally move toward environments where they feel good. Lingering is rarely random. It often reflects that the experience itself is rewarding. Effort is another powerful behavioral indicator. Attraction changes priorities. A person who is interested will often adjust small things, timing, availability, responsiveness, not dramatically, but noticeably over time. Effort does not always look like grand gestures. More often, it appears as consistency, showing up, replying with intention, making space. Behavior communicates value through repetition. Playfulness also tends to increase when attraction is present. Humor becomes more personal, teasing appears. There is a subtle testing of chemistry, a way of exploring connection without directly stating it. Playfulness is important because it lowers emotional distance. It creates a shared space where both people feel more relaxed expressing personality. Attraction thrives in that relaxed space. Curiosity is another behavioral expression of interest. Questions become deeper, not just informational. She wants to understand how you think, what matters to you, what shaped you. This kind of curiosity signals that you are not just part of the environment. You are becoming psychologically meaningful. Attraction often moves from noticing someone to wanting to understand them. It is also important to understand that behavior tends to be more honest than words because words are influenced by social rules. People say what feels appropriate, polite, or safe. Behavior, however, reveals patterns. Patterns are difficult to maintain without genuine motivation. One warm conversation can be politeness. Repeated engagement usually reflects interest. At the same time, behavior should never be interpreted in isolation. Context matters. Personality matters. Some people are naturally warm, attentive, or expressive without romantic intention. This is why attraction is not about one signal. It is about clusters of behavior that consistently move in the same direction. Consistency is what transforms a moment into a message. Another important layer is emotional reciprocity. When attraction exists, interactions tend to feel mutual rather than pursued. Energy is exchanged, not chased. There is responsiveness instead of resistance. Conversations expand instead of closing quickly. This sense of flow is often one of the clearest experiences of behavioral attraction. Ultimately, attraction showing through behavior reminds us of something essential. Real interest is demonstrated, not declared. It is visible in presence, effort, curiosity, comfort, and continuity. Words can invite possibility, but behavior reveals priority. When someone repeatedly chooses interaction, invests attention, and creates connection, that pattern speaks louder than any statement ever could. Attention and presence are among the clearest signals of genuine interest because they reflect where someone's mind and emotional energy are directed. In everyday life, people are constantly divided, distracted by phones, responsibilities, worries, and countless small demands. When a woman is truly interested, one of the first noticeable shifts is how present she becomes around you. Presence is not dramatic. It is quiet but powerful. Being present means she is not simply hearing you, she is listening. There is a difference. Listening involves processing, remembering, and responding with intention. She may recall details you mentioned casually, a preference, a story, a plan you talked about once, and bring them up later. This kind of attention signals that the interaction mattered enough to stay in her mind. People naturally remember what feels emotionally significant. Eye contact is another strong part of presence. Sustained, comfortable eye contact often reflects engagement rather than politeness. It creates a sense of connection that words alone cannot achieve. When someone maintains eye contact while you speak, reacts to your expressions, and mirrors your energy, it suggests that the moment feels important to her. Presence shows up physically before it is ever verbalized. Attention also appears in the way conversations unfold. Instead of surface-level exchanges, the interaction becomes more layered. She asks follow-up questions, expands topics, and keeps the conversation moving. This does not feel like an interview. It feels like curiosity. The conversation has momentum because she is mentally invested. Presence creates that momentum. Another sign of attention is responsiveness. When someone is interested, responses feel thoughtful rather than minimal. Messages are not just short acknowledgments, they carry engagement. Timing can also shift. She may reply more consistently, continue conversations instead of letting them fade, or reinitiate communication. This does not necessarily mean constant texting. It means intentional participation. Presence is also emotional. When a woman is interested, her reactions tend to be more expressive. She laughs more freely, shows empathy, and reacts to your experiences in a way that feels genuine. Emotional responsiveness indicates that she is not detached. She is allowing herself to experience the interaction rather than observing it from a distance. Another subtle but meaningful aspect of presence is reduced distraction. When someone repeatedly checks their phone, looks around the room, or seems mentally elsewhere, attention is divided. But when attraction exists, distractions often fade into the background. She stays in the moment longer. Conversations do not feel rushed. There is a sense of psychological availability, as if the time together is not competing with everything else. Attention can also be seen in anticipation. She may remember upcoming events you mentioned and ask about them later. She might reference past conversations naturally. This creates continuity, which signals that you occupy space in her thoughts beyond immediate interaction. Attraction often includes this mental return, thinking about someone when they are not present. And it is important to understand that attention is a form of investment. Time is limited, emotional energy is limited, and people allocate both based on what feels meaningful. When someone consistently gives you focused attention, they are prioritizing the connection in small but real ways. These small investments accumulate and create the feeling of closeness. However, attention should always be understood alongside personality and context. Some people are naturally attentive communicators. Others show interest more subtly. The key difference is consistency directed specifically toward you. Presence becomes meaningful when it is repeated and personal rather than general. Another layer of presence is comfort with silence. When someone is interested, silence does not automatically feel awkward. There can be pauses that feel relaxed instead of pressured. This reflects emotional ease, a sign that being around you is not effortful. Presence allows space without urgency. Ultimately, attention and presence communicate value without needing explicit statements. They show that the interaction matters enough to focus on, remember, and continue. Attraction often begins not with big gestures, but with this quiet shift in awareness. When someone starts noticing you more, listening more, and staying mentally engaged longer, presence is powerful because it cannot be convincingly forced over time. People drift toward what interests them and away from what does not. When attention repeatedly returns, when presence feels intentional, it suggests that the connection holds meaning. And in human relationships, meaning is often the earliest foundation of attraction. Physical proximity is one of the most subtle yet powerful ways attraction can appear in human interaction. People naturally manage distance based on comfort. When someone feels uncertain, guarded, or uninterested, they tend to maintain more space. When comfort and attraction begin to grow, that distance often decreases, not dramatically but gradually and repeatedly. This shift usually happens without conscious planning. Proximity is not simply about standing close. It reflects a willingness to share space. When a woman chooses to sit nearer to you when other options exist, leans slightly inward during conversation, or remains physically present instead of drifting away, these small behaviors often signal comfort. Attraction typically requires comfort first. Without comfort, closeness feels intrusive. With comfort, closeness feels natural. Body orientation is an important part of proximity. People tend to angle their bodies toward what interests them. Feet, shoulders, and posture often align subconsciously. When her body consistently faces you, even in group settings, it suggests attentional focus and engagement. This is not a single moment signal but a repeated pattern that reflects where her attention naturally returns. Another aspect of proximity is lingering. When an interaction could end but does not immediately, it often indicates that the experience feels rewarding. She may stay a little longer after a conversation finishes, walk with you instead of separating quickly, or remain nearby without a clear practical reason. Lingering is meaningful because people usually move away from situations that feel neutral and stay in ones that feel emotionally positive. Light, casual touch can also appear when proximity increases, but it is important to understand this carefully. Touch varies widely across personalities, cultures, and social norms. However, when attraction exists, touch may become more natural, brief, situational, and comfortable rather than forced. Quick touch during laughter, a gentle tap to emphasize a point, or not pulling away quickly can signal ease with physical closeness. The key element is comfort, not frequency. Proximity also shows up in shared movement. She may match your walking pace, choose to stand beside you rather than across from you, or position herself in a way that maintains closeness during transitions. These micro-choices are rarely deliberate. They reflect a subconscious preference to remain within your physical space. It is important to recognize that physical proximity is deeply connected to emotional safety. People move closer when they feel relaxed, respected, and at ease. Attraction alone is not enough. Safety allows attraction to express itself physically. If she consistently reduces distance, it often suggests that your presence feels comfortable rather than stressful. Context matters significantly. Some environments naturally create closeness, crowded places, shared seating, or social norms that encourage physical warmth. This is why proximity should be observed as a pattern across different situations. When closeness appears even when distance is possible, it becomes more meaningful. Another subtle sign is the absence of avoidance. Attraction does not always mean obvious closeness, but it often means there is no active effort to create distance. She does not step back unnecessarily, reposition away from you, or create physical barriers like objects between you. Comfort with shared space can be as telling as intentional closeness. Proximity also influences emotional connection. Physical closeness can increase conversation depth, eye contact, and a sense of shared focus. When someone repeatedly allows that closeness, it suggests that the interaction feels engaging enough to sustain both physical and psychological presence. However, interpretation requires caution. Some people are naturally expressive with space and touch, while others maintain distance even when interested. Cultural background, personality, and past experiences all shape comfort with proximity. This is why one moment is not meaningful on its own. Consistency over time is what creates clarity. Exeter group respect remains essential. Physical closeness should never be assumed as permission for further escalation. Attraction is not entitlement, and comfort can change moment to moment. The most reliable indicator is reciprocity, closeness that is mutual, relaxed, and responsive rather than one-sided. Ultimately, physical proximity is a quiet language. It communicates comfort, attention, and openness without explicit statements. When a woman repeatedly chooses to share space, remain near, and allow natural closeness, it often reflects that your presence feels positive to her. Attraction frequently begins in these small spatial shifts, the gradual reduction of distance that mirrors growing emotional ease. Time is one of the most valuable resources people have, which is why the way someone uses their time often reveals what matters to them. Attraction frequently appears through time investment long before it is spoken directly. When a woman is interested, you may notice that interactions are not squeezed into leftover moments, but are given space, attention, and continuity. This does not mean dramatic sacrifices. It means intentional choices that slowly become visible. Time investment starts with availability. Someone who is interested tends to make room for interaction even within a busy life. This might look like extending a conversation instead of ending it quickly, suggesting another time to talk when schedules conflict, or adjusting small plans to stay connected. These choices may seem minor individually, but repeated over time they form a clear pattern of prioritization. Prioritization does not require constant contact. Instead, it shows through consistency. When a woman values the connection, communication does not feel random or purely situational. There is follow-through. Plans that are discussed are revisited. Conversations that pause are resumed later. This continuity signals that the interaction did not disappear from her awareness once it ended. Another way time investment appears is through intentional planning. She may suggest meeting again, bring up shared activities, or show interest in experiences that create more time together. Planning reflects future orientation, a sign that the connection is not limited to the present moment. Attraction often includes this forward thinking, where spending time together becomes something anticipated rather than accidental. Effort is closely tied to time. People naturally allocate more effort to what feels meaningful. A woman who is interested might put thought into conversations, respond with care rather than minimal replies, or create opportunities to engage even during busy periods. Effort communicates value because it requires energy. When energy is repeatedly directed toward you, it suggests that the connection holds significance. Time investment can also appear in patience. Interest often reduces the urgency to rush interactions. Instead of seeking quick outcomes, she may allow conversations to develop naturally, spend longer getting to know you, and remain engaged without pressure. This willingness to let things unfold indicates that the experience itself is enjoyable, not just the result. Another subtle indicator is flexibility. When someone is interested, small adjustments become easier. She might shift timing, revisit canceled plans, or find alternatives rather than letting the interaction fade. Flexibility shows that maintaining the connection matters enough to problem solve rather than disengage. Attention within time is equally important. Spending time together is meaningful when it is engaged rather than distracted. A woman who is invested often brings presence into shared time. Conversations feel focused, interactions feel intentional, and moments do not feel like obligations. This combination of time and attention strengthens the sense of connection. It is also important to recognize emotional time, the mental space someone gives you outside direct interaction. When she remembers previous conversations, references things you discussed earlier, or checks in about events in your life, it suggests that you remain in her thoughts. Attraction frequently involves this mental return, where someone continues thinking about you beyond immediate contact. However, time investment must be understood in context. Some people have demanding schedules, responsibilities, or communication styles that limit visible availability even when interest exists. The key is not quantity alone, but pattern. Consistent effort within realistic limits often matters more than constant interaction. Reciprocity is essential. Healthy attraction involves mutual time investment rather than one person carrying the interaction. When both people make space, follow through, and engage, the connection gains stability. One-sided time investment can create confusion, while shared investment creates clarity. Another important distinction is intention versus convenience. Convenience happens when interaction occurs only when nothing else is happening. Intention appears when time is created, not just filled. When a woman chooses interaction even when other options exist, that choice carries meaning. Ultimately, time investment reveals priority in a quiet but reliable way. Words can express interest, but time demonstrates it. When a woman repeatedly creates space, maintains continuity, and directs effort towards shared moments, it often indicates that the connection matters to her. Attraction grows through these repeated choices, small decisions to stay engaged, to continue, and to give the connection room to develop. Playfulness is often one of the earliest and most natural expressions of attraction because it creates emotional ease. When a woman feels drawn to you, interactions may begin to carry a lighter energy, more humor, teasing, shared jokes, and moments that feel less formal. Playfulness reduces pressure. It allows connection to grow without the weight of direct statements, which is why it frequently appears when interest is present. Humor is a central part of this dynamic. When someone is interested, they tend to laugh more freely, respond to your jokes with enthusiasm, and contribute their own. Laughter signals comfort, but it also signals attention. It shows that she is emotionally engaged in the interaction, rather than simply participating out of politeness. Shared laughter creates a sense of us, even in small moments. Teasing is another common form of playfulness. Gentle teasing often reflects familiarity and comfort rather than criticism. It is a way of testing emotional closeness, exploring how you respond, whether the interaction feels safe, and whether there is chemistry. This kind of teasing usually feels warm rather than sharp. The intention is connection, not distance. Playfulness also creates opportunities for emotional expression that might feel too direct otherwise. Flirting often lives inside playful conversation. Compliments may be delivered lightly. Personal comments may appear wrapped in humor. This allows interest to be communicated without vulnerability feeling overwhelming. Playfulness acts as a bridge between neutrality and intimacy. Another aspect of playfulness is spontaneity. When attraction exists, conversations may take unexpected turns, inside jokes form quickly, random topics become engaging, and interactions feel less scripted. Spontaneity reflects mental engagement because it requires presence and comfort. When someone is playful, they are not overly guarded. They are allowing personality to show. Playfulness often increases emotional safety. It signals that the interaction is enjoyable rather than evaluative. When a woman feels safe being playful with you, it suggests she is comfortable showing personality without fear of judgment. Attraction frequently grows in environments where both people feel free to be expressive rather than careful. Shared humor is particularly meaningful because it creates a private emotional language. Inside jokes, references, and playful patterns build a sense of familiarity. This familiarity strengthens connection because it distinguishes your interaction from others. Attraction often includes this shift, where conversations begin to feel uniquely shared rather than generic. Playfulness can also be a way of maintaining attention. Light teasing, playful challenges, or humorous comments keep interaction dynamic. This does not mean constant entertainment. It means the energy feels alive. When someone repeatedly brings that energy into conversations with you, it often reflects that the interaction itself is rewarding. Another subtle sign is increased expressiveness. Tone, facial expressions, and animated responses tend to become more visible when someone is playful. This expressiveness indicates emotional involvement. People rarely become playful in interactions that feel neutral or draining. Playfulness suggests that the moment feels positive enough to relax into. However, interpretation requires awareness of personality. Some individuals are naturally playful with many people, while others show playfulness selectively. The key difference is personalization. When the humor, teasing, and playful energy feel specifically directed toward you, referencing your conversations, your personality, or shared experiences, it becomes more meaningful. Playfulness also allows boundaries to be explored safely. It can reveal how both people handle closeness, misunderstanding, or emotional signals. When playful exchanges feel mutual and comfortable, they often indicate compatibility. Attraction is not only about interest, it is about how interaction feels in real time. Playfulness reveals that feeling. At the same time, healthy playfulness respects comfort. It does not pressure, embarrass, or create confusion. Genuine playful attraction feels reciprocal. Both people contribute, both feel relaxed, and neither feels tested in a stressful way. The tone remains warm, not uncertain. Ultimately, playfulness is a language of connection. It shows that interaction has moved beyond formality into something more relaxed and engaging. When a woman becomes more playful with you, laughing, teasing, creating shared humor, and bringing lightness into conversations, it often reflects comfort and emotional interest. Attraction frequently grows in these light spaces where seriousness softens and connection becomes enjoyable enough to continue naturally.